Welcome to the 8 Billion Project, where we're on a mission to make an impact by discovering and sharing the purpose of every person on this planet. I'm your host, Liza Florida. Enjoy today's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 8 Billion Podcast. I am your host, Liza Florida, and here we are again with another episode for Season 5D. My guest today is an author, speaker, and mindset coach. Some call her the Cancer Whisperer, and she helps women to activate mind-body healing to heal from cancer. Everyone, please help me welcome Cindy Scott to the 8 Billion Podcast. How are you, Cindy?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. When I came across your work, I was excited, of course. It's very near and dear to my heart because I've lost my mother to cancer. And so when I read Cindy's bio and her work, I absolutely had to have her on season 5D because she has actually taken a holistic journey to healing. And so I'm super excited to have her share her story. So Cindy, if you would like to start, you could start anywhere in your timeline. But of course, you can start anywhere in your timeline. But of course, it would lead to where your work that you do today.
Absolutely. Okay. So I guess not that you would wish a cancer diagnosis on anyone, but now on reflection, I can say that it was the greatest gift to me in my life and my awakening. And so at the beginning of 2020, and the world was kind of going crazy with COVID and everyone was advised to get back home to their home countries. At the same time, I was diagnosed for the second time with breast cancer. So it was kind of like this doubly doomed kind of freaky place in the world to be when it was like diagnosed, self-isolation, kind of freaking out about my own health and well-being. And at the same time, the world was doing this at the same time in parallel. So in a way, I kind of felt supported that the world was shut down. You weren't allowed to travel. You weren't allowed to go on holidays of any sort. It was like, stay home, stay safe. So I wasn't feeling I was missing out on anything socially or, travel or anything like that. But what I was confronted with was a second diagnosis with breast cancer, which was a journey in itself in terms of me shutting off my connection to the outer world and diving deeper into my own inner landscape. And I guess because it was my second diagnosis, it rattled me that much more. It was like, haven't I dealt with this already? Did I not get the learnings and heal the first time? Why has this revisited me in just less than 5 years? Yeah. So I guess for me, what's unique about my journey is that I've experienced breast cancer twice. The second time through was a lot more aggressive, so it required chemotherapy. There was talk of radiation, but unfortunately, I was able to say pass on that. I didn't have the radiation. But I guess there was so many learnings and insights I took away from my second journey with cancer that I think are worthy of sharing to people that are going through a journey like this, whether it's cancer or whether it's any other sort of health scare.
Mm-hmm. No, yes, absolutely. So, because I wanted to ask you, your first, well, obviously you had just said your second, you had to do chemo because it was a little bit more aggressive. Were you able to heal your first cancer bout with breast cancer holistically?
I chose to have the lumpectomy because I was new to the whole cancer world and I was that total deer in headlights freaking out, like, what does this mean for me? So I had the lumpectomy. Then I chose to do some complementary therapies and I refused the drug therapy. So they had advised for me to take tamoxifen for 5 years. I said, thanks, but no, I think I'll work on my own mindset. I'll work on my own health and well-being. And so I really just went it alone from there.
Right.
So the second time, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. Go ahead, Cindy.
No, I was going to say the second time around was even more frightening because it was a more aggressive cancer and it was in my lymphatic system. So I had it in my lymph nodes. And straight away, the doctors were saying, look, we need you in for surgery pronto. We need to get you started on chemotherapy straight away. So there was a lot more sense of urgency and severity to the second diagnosis. And then at the same time, I have this husband who's very entrenched in conventional medicine. So he's like, well, you must have these things. And I'm like, but no, I don't want these things. Yeah. So I had some real internal conflict around what way do I go with all of this? So to appease him and my family as well, but also to honor myself and the journey that I knew intuitively was the right one for me, I actually did a little bit of both. So I did have a lumpectomy, I did have chemotherapy, I did have a double mastectomy, but I also did a truckload of inner work, complementary therapies, and wrote a book all through that. So there was a lot of healing for me as well. I wanted to take a lead role in my healing journey. And I think very much I did that in the second time through.
I'm just going to warn you guys already because I'm crying. And the only reason I'm crying, and I did this with Cindy in her pre-podcast interviews, because it really, for obvious reasons, you guys know, and anyone who has followed me or been my friends and family that are even listening to this podcast, my mom is my angel, and so I watched her go through first breast cancer and then second bile duct cancer, which is an aggressive form of liver cancer. And your stories are very parallel, because her second round, she didn't want to go down the Western medicine route. She didn't want to go chemo. She didn't want, but of course, my brother and sister and, everyone, they're very, they believe in that practice. And it's not to say that I don't. There's certain parts of it that, of course, that I believe, and there's other parts where I believe we can go holistic first. And she wanted to. So she was very much in your seat, Cindy, where she went, she wanted to. So to appease the kids, all of us, she went both routes, but her second round of cancer, she didn't respond very well to chemo. Yeah. And so I do believe that what created a little bit more longevity for us to have her, I think she was with us for maybe 10 months from her diagnosis, was that she did a mix of holistic. However, on a deeper level, and let me ask you this, Cindy, I do believe that my mom's cancer stemmed from many, many years and maybe half a lifetime of stress and a lot of things that become a part of our body that we don't realize, like stuck energy and just like a lot of trauma that we've never really healed or weren't even conscious we needed to heal from.
I totally agree with that. And I think even on a personal level, before we go there, let's please honor your mum though and acknowledge her in this moment, because
thank you.
Special lady that's brought you into the world, and obviously she's had a tough journey herself. So let's pay tribute to her.
No, thank you so much, Cindy. That's why I knew beyond, like, you there was a reason why you were led to me or found me, or how we energetically met.
Vice versa. Well, one of the things that I find when I'm speaking at events, I tend to share this mantra of whisper, tap, slap. And so I believe that we get a little bit of a whisper, and our body is always communicating with us, right? So we'll get a little whisper, and it might be headaches, or we're not sleeping right, or we've got muscle tension, or there's some way that your body's indicating that you're out of alignment. Yes. And then if you miss the whisper, you get a bit of a tap. And then if you miss the tap, then you get the full-on slap. And I'd say that cancer for me was the proverbial soccer punch to the guts. It was like, you've missed all the signs. I've been communicating with you all this time that you're stressed, you're exhausted, that you're not living your truth. And, I've had to actually give you a really big shake to wake you up and actually get you on your right path. So I do believe, and I'd love to do research around this. And I know that there has been a lot of research already done to date, but for people that get cancer, what is actually trapped in their body in terms of emotions, trauma, beliefs? For me, when I had my diagnosis, a girlfriend said to me, well, your soul will be getting something out of this that it wants. And I was like, initially I was like quite offended. I'm like, what do you mean? But then there was this quieter voice within me going, I'm actually going to get a rest. Like in my 50 years of life, I've been going. And I've had a lot of setbacks in my life too. There's been quite a few hurdles in my path. I am very resilient, and I know I'm very strong, but I was very exhausted with everything that life had served me. And I thought, I've actually manifested the perfect rest. I could hit pause on my life. And I wonder for other cancer patients too, what is going on for them in their inner landscape that, is trapped and held there?
I can only at least speak for my mom's experience. And I know, she didn't have a good marriage, you know.
Mm.
And also another thing, she's an alpha female. She ran a real estate business that of course she turned over to me, my brother and sister. She was very good at it, had a kind heart. But again, I mean, everything from your emotions. And that's what I wanted to tell the audience, that sometimes the toxicity can become your closest relationship. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying by any means, hey, everyone's like start leaving your partners and spouses and all that kind of stuff. But you've got, when you try to alleviate stress or you try to remove it from your life, you've got to really sit down and identify what your stress factors are. Because at one point, you're going to be used to taking on so much, it doesn't feel like stress for you. And that's where I believe that's when the cancer starts to grow.
One of the things that I learned along my cancer journey too was that I was actually addicted to the adrenaline, like that feeling of being buzzy and important and busy. And, I was quite attached to my identity of being busy. And I thought that meant that I was purposeful and I was that I was important, or that was actually making me feel worthy in some way.
Yes.
But really, that's not the truth. That's just an illusion. And so detaching from that adrenaline fueled pace was a really big challenge for me.
Yeah, no, it really is. And that's why I was just going to say, now, Cindy, when you coach, let me ask you, like, how do you, clients that come to you now, are they from all different stages, from like stage 1 all the way to remission?
Yeah. So I work with people right from, they can come to me right at diagnosis when they're that deer in headlights, straight through to being on the other side of treatment and wanting to rebuild their life. So anywhere along that continuum. So I've got a number of different resources and support materials to help people go through any stage of that. So the first phase is really to get a hold of the book, the Healing Journal, which is like a workbook, a guidebook to help people navigate through treatment, and also to manage the mindfulness side of how to deal with an overrun nervous system and to bring more calm and groundedness to you through your treatment process. There's some beautiful journaling inquiry questions in there and journaling pages. I've also got 2 online programs. So there's one called the Cancer Companion Support Program, which is a beautiful program that mirrors the book. So the book goes with that. Mm-hmm. And then I've got another program called the Great Reset Program, which is about thriving after cancer and putting your life back together. I've got a number of meditations that are free on my website as well. And I've also got a podcast, which I've just launched recently, called Rethinking Cancer. So there's a number of beautiful resources that are free and easy to access. And so if someone decides that they want to work with me personally, I'm a little bit harder to get to in terms of, there's a number of ways that you can work with me in a group context. I do work one-to-one with people more at an executive level, mostly women that are really struggling with, well, how do I keep this all together? How do I keep all the balls in the air? And my identity is being eroded with a cancer diagnosis and treatment. And how do I make this all work? So I often help women through that process and then rebuilding themselves and their identity post-cancer, because often cancer leads to change. The big C, I think, is not cancer, but it's actually change that we tend to head towards with something that turns our world upside down like cancer does.
Yeah, no, I'm finding it's absolutely. And what I'm even after going through that whole thing of losing my mom, even sometimes the trauma that's caused amongst the family members too, that lose, if they lose the loved one, it's that in and of itself is also a journey, and that's a healing process there. So my heart goes out to so many different families. That's why I wanted to bring Cindy on, to know that there's a resource out there for everyone specifically geared towards that. One thing I wanted to ask you though, Cindy, is in most cases, when you do get a potential client or someone that comes to you, are they are they ever like on the brink of like they believe in Western, or they really just know they want to absolutely go down holistic?
I think, I mean, if people are very pro Western medicine and that's like they're very one eyed about that, they're probably not the right client for me.
Yeah, I'm
But
sure.
if there's someone who wants to dabble a little bit in both worlds, so Western and Eastern philosophy, or yeah, probably not purely alternative. I probably wouldn't be the right practitioner for them for that. But to help people around their mindset, to connect the body mind, to activate their own inner healing, then I'm the right person. To help people really empower their own selves to heal from within. So I'm in the camp of believing that we don't want to wait for somebody external to us to fix us, like a doctor to come in and actually fix us. That we can actually take charge of our own healing journey and empower ourselves to take the lead role in that. So if someone identifies with that approach and that philosophy, then those are the types of people that I tend to work with.
No, that's absolutely beautiful, because remember how you were saying that sometimes people get appalled by you. What was that? Cancer is a gift. So,
Yeah.
Cindy, what if just by chance you ended up getting it to open up this pathway for others to heal through this? That's what I'm saying. And that's what I want the audience to know, you know?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes, like I say that, I mean, the tagline on the front cover of my book is the gift of cancer. Now, some people would be horrified to hear that. And, you know, even in conversation when I share that or I speak at events and I say that, some people are really offended to hear, what do you mean the gift of cancer? But I think no matter what horrible things happen to us in life, we can always look for the silver lining. We can always find gifts. And so people say to me, well, what were the gifts of cancer for you? And I'm like, I've written a whole book on the gifts of cancer for me. I can't just list them off in a conversation. There are so many ways that I have grown, that I've become a better person, that I've learned to slow down, that I've learned to breathe more deeply, that I've got much more gratitude for everything in my life. I mean, the list goes on. There's so many ways that cancer's really woken me up to the truth of who I am and the work that I really want to do in this world. I mean, what price do you put on that?
No, absolutely. It's like if someone were to ask me, like I still feel like I'm on my journey, but I commend you for having put together a book, because it's really needed, most especially during this time. As everyone is like shifting into, okay, there is a call, there is an awakening happening, and there is a call for more holistic work coming out, because everyone's just like, oh, I don't know if we can, especially with COVID, and they didn't even, if you didn't have anything severe, like you weren't dying within 24 hours, they wouldn't take you because there wasn't enough beds across the world. So, and I heard that too, was that sometimes often cancer patients were kind of not put to the back burner, but were not, of course, because if you have someone that's dying of COVID, they have to help that person first. But
well, in Australia, though, we have a public health system and we have a private health system. So they're two distinctly different systems. And fortunately, I'm very, very fortunate. And that's another thing I'm so immensely grateful for, is I've been in the private system. So it has been largely unaffected by COVID and shortage of beds and that. So my whole cancer journey and treatment was not interrupted because of COVID. What did get affected, though, was I wasn't able to take any support people with me to my appointments. So I basically did my cancer journey on my own. My beautiful husband drove me to my appointments, but he wasn't even allowed in the front door because of the risk. You know, like when you pan back 2 years, everyone was freaking out about, what is COVID and am I going to die from it? And how does it spread? And like, no one had answers. So there was a lot of fear around it. And so I did actually do most of my treatment on my own. And that was really frightening, particularly with the chemotherapy, because that was a pretty daunting process for me to go in and have those infusions myself.
Yeah, I know you are very strong. I know my mom is strong. I was like, you are a very strong woman, Cindy. It is
Well,
truly
when
true.
you get tested, that's when you figure out just how strong you are. And I know that I've been in some pretty dark places and I've had some pretty big challenges in this lifetime, but one thing I do know is I am strong and I'm resilient and I will get through. Like, bring it on. What else you got for me?
I'm all like, I'm all, this is a typical conversation. I feel like I'm talking with my mom, the strength of my mom. The kids would be bawling her eyes out and she would just be this unwavering strength of love.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's such an honor for me to sit with you here.
Yeah, and likewise. There's three things though that I've really narrowed it down to in terms of what I did differently
I
between.
was just gonna say that.
Yeah, the first time I'd say I did everything epically wrong. I swept my diagnosis under the carpet. I refused a lot of treatment. I continued working. I was like, toughen up, soldier on, get going. And I thought that was what strength was. I didn't share it with many people. And I was a single mom at that time with a young son. And, if I wasn't working, I wasn't getting paid. I was self-employed. So that was really quite confronting and scary for me. But I just soldiered on and pushed through it. So when cancer showed up the second time, I approached it very differently. And thankfully, I have this beautiful man in my life who said, well, it didn't work for you the last time, and here you are with it the second time. Why don't we look at doing it a little bit differently this time? So when I synthesized that down into three things that I did very differently, the first thing is I chose to be vulnerable. Now, that V word is so icky and uncomfortable for me. To actually, because I guess I've made it mean weakness, that I need help or that I'm going to be dependent on someone. And because I've always been very strong and independent, I'm like, what do you mean vulnerable? What do you mean share? What do you mean get support from people? But what my husband said to me was, he said, look, you've got a lot of people around you that love you and they want to help you, but you need to open the door and actually let them help you and let them see you falling apart, down, needing help, bald. Like I went through that really ugly chemotherapy phase where I didn't even like what I was seeing in the mirror, but to be vulnerable and actually let people in was huge. That was such a massive learning for me to actually go, well, I need to open my heart in order to receive. So to seek support from people was number one, a really big game changer.
Yeah. No, it really is. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Please
no, that's
keep going.
all right.
Please keep going while I just cry here.
Two, I chose to see the positives, even in the darkest times, because you will go through dark times, no matter what challenge life throws at you. We have a natural progression of the way we handle things on an emotional level. And even in the darkest days, I'd be like, okay, what can I be thankful for in this moment? And it might be, I can hear a bird chirping outside, or the sun shining today, or I got a text from a girlfriend, or like any little thing that I could latch onto to just put my mind on something positive rather than on the things that I didn't have. That was massive, massive, massive. And the third thing is I learned how to love myself. And I think that's something that I had never done well in my life. I'd never made myself a priority. I had never put myself first. It was always, making sure everybody else around me was okay, but didn't actually take time to honor myself or even do things that gave me pleasure. I've just recently signed up for a painting class. I wanted to paint my whole life. I'm now painting, salsa dancing.
That's amazing.
Taking beach walks, like actually putting myself first and going, you know what? I deserve happiness. I deserve to be able to do things that bring me joy. So that self-love, self-honoring has been a really big part as well.
Oh my gosh, that you said it all while I cried for this whole 5 minutes when she described it. Cindy, I don't know where you get your strength from. It's just like my mom. But I truly honor your journey because it's so true. And by me sharing this, even, it touches the deepest parts of my soul. It's absolutely those things. Because when you're on this constant go, like my mother, who was running a business, you don't know it. You don't actually know that you're not taking the time for yourself.
Hmm.
And those are the biggest things. The self-love is huge. That is absolutely the first journey and step to like the healing process.
I think you said that about your mum too a little bit earlier. You said that she was always giving to everybody else, running a
Huh?
business, looking after you guys,
Yeah.
and maybe self-love was a part of it for her. They do say breast cancer is actually, an inability to nourish and love self. That's what the breasts
Yeah.
represent.
I've heard that too, Cindy. I
Yeah.
actually heard that. And then I heard that liver was tied to anger. So, that was
I've heard
also.
that cancer is actually repressed anger in our body. So, a girlfriend said that to me very early in my journey. And I thought, well, whether it's true or not, I'm just going to sit with that and I'm going to
Uh-huh.
connect with any anger that needs to be healed within me. And I did find quite a bit of anger that needed to be addressed when I got to it.
You're like, oh, yeah, there's that.
Yeah, a few people to forgive along the way, and but yeah, like we've all got stuff that we can actually do some work around and clear out, because whether it manifests as cancer or something else, I mean, at the end of the day, lighten the load, let rid of all the stuff that doesn't serve you, and get on living your truth and be aligned and feel energized by life rather than dragging you through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cindy, one thing before I ask you to share how people can get a hold of you, tell us a little bit more about your podcast. I know you just launched it. So by the time anyone sees this, Cindy had launched probably in March. So by the time this is released, she'll have a few more episodes, but at least you guys will know that's another resource out there for you.
Yeah. So the podcast is called Rethinking Cancer. And the purpose of the podcast is to start having different conversations about cancer. So it's a mind shift kind of program to get us thinking differently. So there's 3 different types of people that I'll be interviewing on the program. Firstly, it'll be cancer survivors that have actually found purpose and shifted in a whole new direction as a result of their diagnosis. The second are expert interviews of people that can actually help support us to move through it. Might be different complementary therapists or doctors or psychologists, anyone who can actually support us in ways that are resourceful. And the third type of people that I'm interviewing are people that have strategies and tools to live your best life free from cancer. So I have so many different people I want to interview, and I've got 4 out there already. And I'm just loving the experience of hearing people's stories, sharing them so that they may affect others going through tough times in their life.
This is going to be an absolutely 8 billion. This was such a gift, not only to me, and now I can give it to the world,
Absolutely.
but I know it's going to do the same for you.
I hope so. I just love it. I absolutely love the experience of it. So that's I've got it in video on YouTube and audio on Spotify. So there's 2 different ways you can actually watch or listen to the program.
Amazing. So tell us, okay, so let us know, do you have a website and how we can, I know that of course you just mentioned your podcast, but what's the best way for people to get a hold of you or learn more about your services?
Yeah, look, you can find everything on my website, which is evolvingwomen.co. So you can find the podcast on there. You can find the healing range of products that we've got. You can find the book, the online programs, everything's there. So that's probably a good central point to send people to.
Yeah. Awesome. So you heard that. And just in case you didn't catch that because you're either driving or you're out there listening, because this is modern day, right? Technology. I will have all of her links on the show notes or whatever platform you're viewing this from. But Cindy, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this season 5D, and for most especially the work you do for other humans.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for our chat today.
You're very welcome. And to the audience, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the 8 Billion Podcast with Cindy Scott, and we will catch you on the next one. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the 8 Billion Podcast. If it's moved you in any way, please share your thoughts or give us a review on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. To listen to more episodes, go to 8billionpodcast.com, or to learn more about our mission, go to 8billionproject.com.